Joining us now is Rui Tyitende, a political analyst. Rui, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. The most contested Namibian election since 1990, but seemingly nearly not enough to depose Swapo, which has been running the country since, at least according to some analysts. Do you share that view?
Yes, absolutely. Since 2019, Namibia has entered the epoch of unpredictable politics, meaning that for the first time since 1990, as you rightly pointed out, the governing party, Swapo, is in the political intensive care unit. Since 2019, they have lost significant support in the presidential race, in the National Assembly race, as well as the regional and local authority elections. Just for proper context, in 2019, the presidential candidate of the governing party pocketed 56% compared to the independent candidate who claimed still to be a member of the governing party, and he was able to garner 29% of the vote. You juxtapose that with the 2014 presidential election, where Swapo's candidate garnered 87%. So it was like an A student becoming a D student. So the governing party has been knocking on death's door, but despite these challenges from the opposition, it remains a dominant actor in our body politic.
Well, I mean, from 87% in 2014 to 56% in 2019, that's quite significant. So isn't it a question of, or a story of anything is possible in this particular election? And I'm looking here at our own situation here in South Africa.
No, absolutely. But you need to take into account that despite the problems that are similar in South Africa, I mean, for the past 10 years or so, Namibia has been competing with South Africa to be the number one, to have the number one spot in terms of being the most unequal society in the world. Out of 3 million people, we have 1.6 million people living in poverty, 1.4 million people facing hunger, a 36% unemployment rate amongst the youth. So the governing party, just like the ANC, has been unable to adequately address those socioeconomic dynamics. The young people at the moment comprise 71% of the 3.1 million people. For the upcoming elections, you have 1.4 million people that have registered, and 42% of them, or 900,000 of those people, are young people. So you have this huge demographic that is disillusioned with the status quo. They are blaming someone for their problems: unemployment, inequality, poverty, and to a large extent, they are blaming the governing party. But the central question is, will these young people show up at the polls and vote for a party that they deem will bring about the changes that they so desire?
Now, the person, who is leading the pack of opposition candidates is Panduleni Itula, who came in second in 2019. Do you think he has been able to galvanize the country's young people this time around?
Dr. Panduleni Itula speaks largely to an urban class of citizens, but he has also been able to make strategic inroads into various corners of the country. Namibia is a vast country, geographically dispersed, but he has been able to make inroads into the strongholds of Swapo in the northern parts of the country, in the central part. And during the special voting that took place on the 13th of November, they were able to still maintain their base in the Rongo region, which is a coastal region in the country, for a large part as a consequence of the fish rot saga that happened, or that was exposed rather, in the build-up to the 2019 elections. He remains the leading contender, and my take is that none of the other opposition parties, especially in the presidential race, stand a chance of unplucking Swapo from power unless they form a formidable coalition with the IPC or with Panduleni Itula.
Now, Swapo's presidential candidate is the current vice president. Nandi-Ndaitwah. What has she, in the run-up to the election, has she shown any signs that she was going to lead Swapo to a stronger or less than spectacular performance in these elections? Have you been able to discern any signs as to where she can or how she can possibly perform in this election?
Well, look, the governing party remains a dominant force. It remains a hegemonic force in our body politic. But the fact remains that she's actually part of the legacy problem that confronts the governing party. Swapo currently has a serious image problem. It is now being equated with corruption, poor service delivery, a disillusioned youth, young people that just do not see a future that is in terms of being part and parcel of the Namibian house. Now, if you look at the candidate Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, she does not exhibit any form of charisma or appeal to young people, but she has been able to preach unity, and she's been able to at least appoint young people as part of voting powers or constitutional powers at party level, at least, to show young people that, look, despite the fact that I'm part of the old generation, despite the fact that I'm not part of your generation, at least I've heard to the voices of young people. But the central question remains, what are the young people saying? What are their sentiments? And as you might know, we are busy with the elections. I actually voted this morning. People are voting across the country, and young people are actually tired of being in the queues compared to the older people, because they have a stake in the process, because they benefit from grants, they benefit from old pension, similar like what South Africa is having in terms of the social welfare system. But if 80% of the young people show up at the polls, my hunch is that there will be a runoff of the election. If not, Swapo will sail through and they will remain a dominant party, because Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah will win and she will be able to form a cabinet. Unlike South Africa, we have a presidential system. 50+1 allows you to form a cabinet, and it allows you a lot of executive powers where you'll be able to dish out patron-client benefits.
Why did Swapo settle for her and not, for argument's sake, Nangolo Mbumba, who has been the interim president following, of course, the death of President Heingob?
Well, the party has its own internal processes of how it elects its leaders. And Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah was the most popular amongst those that have contested for the position. Nangolo Mbumba has made it very clear that he has no intentions or ambitions to run for president, at least on a full-time basis, because as we speak, he is an acting president and not a substantive president. He's just fulfilling the unexpired mandate of our late president, President Geingob. So he has no ambitions to run for state power. He's made it very clear. Age is also not on his side. He's 82 years of age. So in terms of biology, he does not stand a chance to contest for political power.
That's where we're going to leave it for today. Rui Tyitende, political analyst, thank you very much for your time.